everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Boston Comics and Color Festival. This is the final panel on day one. We've had an incredible day with some really amazing panels, and I'm very excited to introduce you to some incredible creators from around the country. Um, we're going to get right into it because the time is a bit short. We got a lot of people to talk to. We're going to start out by talking to my man Barrington Edwards, who is a local guy. He's my partner in crime. We created Comics in Color together. This is our vision. Here I'm gonna start tearing up if I start talking about it too much because this is so many years in the making. Here to be here with you and to talk about your work, bro. I'm very excited. So why don't you start by introducing yourself to the people? You're here in Boston. I'll say that for you. And let's talk about your work.
Oh my God. Thank you, Kagan. This is incredible. Thank you, everybody who's logged on, everybody at home, everybody across the country. This is a dream come true. And we did, um, yeah, I have to say that we co conspired it, but Kagan really put the muscle of the grind behind it. So hats off to you and congratulations. So my name is Barrington Edwards, Professor Vexer, on lots of social media, but as you can see my name on the screen, maybe. You can find me at Studio Vexer on Instagram and on Twitter, on Facebook, on threadless.com. You can find me under Studio Vexer and Indie Planet if you want to look at some comics that I've kind of produced on my own. So I'm an artist here in Dorchester, Boston, Massachusetts. I've been teaching in the high school system at the Boston Arts Academy for about 20 years, young artist. And I have also always been freelancing, doing art, everything from comics, painting, live work, puppetry, installation work, anything I can get my hands on, but comics are my bread and butter.
Awesome. And I know you've been in this comics game for a long time and been an inspiration to a lot of people. But what got you into comics?
I think as far back as like most folks, our moms, right? We got to hat tip to moms. My mom would bring me to work with her late at night. She worked in a hospital and just give me comics to sit me down and read. I fell in love with everything hand drawn, comics, animation, puzzles, games, but I love the storytelling and comics. And then when I started to draw them more often, that became what I was known for. So I've been making my own comics since I was middle school, high school. And in terms of the game, I left college and decided, well, I'm going to try this out. And I started doing work with small companies and independent kind of comics projects back in the early 90s.
So um, I know you've got a lot of comics under your belt, many of which I read and love. But what comic product project that you've worked on are you the most proud
Oh, wow. The next project,
of?
the project I'm working on next is the project I'm most proud of. But if I have to this is the project that I have in my lap right now. This tome. This is the most work I've done in comics in my life, and this is probably the first thing published by someone other than myself. It taught me a lot about comics. This is the story of Oscar Dunn, who was the first Black lieutenant governor in the United States, and just with the implications that carries, it meant a lot for me to work on this piece of history and chronicle our story throughout history time in the Reconstruction era. So this was probably the biggest labor of love, even though I didn't write it and it wasn't a story that I did on my own.
How many
Monumental.
pages is that, bro?
Uh, I, I can tell you how many pages I drew. I drew 182 pages, roughly, a little bit more, plus the little doodads like the design work, things like because the Masonic symbols. So I did well over 200 drawings, but about 185 pages of comic work.
And did you do it all digitally, or did you do sketch it out by hand, or what was the process for creating that book?
Kagan, you playing games with me? Like you playing games with because Kagan's kind of Kagan's trying to get me to say that my process is really messy. Um,
I
I
was not.
so and this was almost this was because it was a larger project, and I really wanted to have it done on time. I took take deadlines really seriously. It was mostly done on Procreate. I did the thumbnails on paper, those early designs. Um, by hand. So I have stacks of early drawings, but then everything else, from the black and white work to the color work, is all on Procreate. Somebody else did the lettering, and the compositional work, but pretty much all on my little tiny iPad. Not tiny, but whew,
That's a
I
lot of
gave it a
pages to
stroke.
do. A lot of pages to do on an iPad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah, I bet you did. Um, well, I know you were talking about your favorite project is your next project. So what are you working on currently, and what you are you looking forward to working on in the future?
I spent the whole afternoon today just kind of, because my brain is really cyclical and strange, and I'm like a dog with a bone, a very stubborn person, going through all my sketchbooks, all these, like you can see tons of sketchbooks behind me, looking for this one drawing that I did and an idea for one story, um, that I couldn't find. So I have a larger story where I kind of synthesize, look at what's going on in our world right now, and synthesize what's happening, project it a little bit. And I've been developing this story, that's started to be called that's called a come up, right? It's just about, started as a coming of age story with two young men, one of whom is 11-foot giant. Just happens to be, that just happens to be a thing in the Black community in this world that I'm building. And that's the project that I'm working on now. And lots of smaller stories and other stories are starting to weave their way into it. So it's becoming an anthology. And there's a lot of cross play between older ideas and newer ideas, as I try to keep up with this crazy world that we're actually living in.
Yes, the come up is one of my favorite stories. I'm so glad that you're continuing to work on that. It's such an amazing world you're building. And we lost a little bit of your audio there when you were describing about the character. And
Oh,
tell us about that and the allegory of that.
ah, so the allegory, so the come up, I'll say it again, and I hope my signal doesn't flake out on me. So there are two characters, Ox and Clam, and they're graffiti writers. They're young people growing up in East Coast of the United States, and Ox is hit puberty, and one day over the course of a few maybe days woke up and found himself to be about 11 feet tall, huge young man of color. And the allegory of that is that how do we deal with our youth when they are presenting as much older and much more powerful than they actually are, and what happens when marginalized youth don't literally fit into society. um, it's just an opportunity for me to kind of push that metaphor of um, marginalized youth.
Amazing. Well, we're about out of time, B. It was really good talking to you. But before we transition to the next person, give us your contacts one more time.
Okay, so Studio Vexer, all one word, .biz on the web. And yeah, that website needs to be freshened up. But on Instagram, everything is fresh, hot, and ready, like silver dollar pancakes, boom, with the little cherry sauce on it. So on Instagram, Studio Vexer or Professor Vexer, and Facebook, Studio Vexer also. Indie Planet. If you look up Indie Planet, you can you can order on demand books and or the digital version of these books.
Amazing. Awesome, man. Thank you very much. Um, Barrington is also going to be hosting the Comics Connectivity panel tomorrow, our first panel tomorrow. So definitely tune in for that. That one's going to be amazing. And he's also going to be at the open market on Saturday. So definitely check out Barrington's work. We are back. with Mr. Gabriel Reid. Gabriel Reid, and I'm really excited to see you. I know you've been featured on Comics in Color before, and it was a really great session, one of my favorites. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us where you are and a little bit about your work or your set.
Sure. Thanks so much, Kagan, for having me. This is so cool. I'm Gabriel Reid. I'm an artist, a writer, filmmaker. I'm a student at Northeastern University. I'm a third year. I'm studying media arts and screen studies in the College of Arts, Media, and Design. I'm not in Boston right now. I'm actually in Olathe, Kansas. That's where I'm from. It's about a 40-minute drive outside of Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, I make comics. I like telling stories, especially for middle grade readers. I kind of am aspiring to work in pre-production for animation. And yeah, it's kind of like another thing that I like to do is tell stories through comics. So yeah.
Awesome. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Barrington. What first got you into comics?
Sure. What first got me into comics, I think, is kind of the aspiration, at least, or desire to work in animation. I think I didn't read that many comics growing up. I think my older brother passed down a few comics to me, some Spider-Man, some Venom. I think a lot of my inspiration comes from watching a lot of animation cartoons growing up, a lot of PBS Kids, a lot of Arthur, a lot of Cyber Chase, Word Girl, a lot of DreamWorks and Pixar movies, and looking at comics is kind of cool. I think it's a really nice entry point into practicing sequential storytelling, into practicing visual storytelling. And I didn't really know much about this comic world for like a little bit. And of course, coming to a lot of these Comics in Color meetings, I've learned so much about the medium. So that's kind of why I jumped into comics, and I've kind of like found it a really great place to practice these skills.
It seems for a lot of folks that like those Saturday morning. Well, maybe I'm dating myself by saying Saturday morning cartoons, but like the cartoons really led a lot of folks to like get into like comics, because animation sometimes is a little bit hard to do by yourself, but comics you can crank one of those out on your own. So which one of your projects that you've worked on in the past are you the most proud of?
I think the project that I'm the most proud of is the comic that I actually just released, as in like last year in June. Healing Us, the Healing Us comic that I talked about. I actually have it right here, actually. Whoops, hello. There we go. Here it is, Healing Us. I made it as part of one of my classes, and then I later published it onto Gumroad. And the story behind it is that it's a story about the intersectionality of racial justice and mental health, kind of a part of activism that we don't really talk about as much. And I was thinking about like, why do we not talk about mental health in the Black community as much as we should? And so this is kind of an entry point into talking more about it. Here's an example of one of the pages. And I think it's probably the proudest one just because of I kind of has noticed to see like the impact of it. A lot of folks have read it and kind of like, told me that they learned so much about something they didn't know that much about before. And I think it has a lot of resources in it to talk more about these issues. And I think it's kind of cool that I could be part of that impact. It was also a fundraiser. I was raising money for two different organizations, the Loveland Foundation Therapy Fund, which is giving Black women and girls access to high quality mental health care, and the 100 Black Men of America, Inc., which is a mentorship program for Black youth across the nation. And you can still get it too. It's at gumroad.com/healingus. So I think that's the one I'm most proud of, also because it was such a heavy subject. And I don't think I told a story quite like it before. I had to really like look deep inside of me and ask a lot of my family questions about mental health, things we're not really used to talking about as openly. So I just think that was a really important and impactful project that I think I'm really proud of.
And you'd used a very different style from your usual style on this one. You usually do like really heavy line, bright color, kind of animation kind of esque sort of work. What made you decide to go with black and white on that one?
Yeah, for black and white, it kind of came down to talking about contrast. I thought that the having the black, the intensity of black and the intensity of white would be really great for this kind of subject matter. And also with black and white, and we kind of talked about this at our Comics in Color in November, there's a bit of a weight to it, a bit of a somberness to it, and putting it in black and white, I think really helps to have that idea or using without color is exactly what it kind of carries with it. So that's kind of when I decided to go black and white. And I also like the challenge of going black and white. I've never done it before. So it's just like, this sounds like a challenge. I'll take it kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge. With black and white, you have to tell the information with like less value, which is it is difficult. I definitely find it difficult, and I definitely would recommend that folks, go back to our YouTube page and watch the Healing Us episode of our Comics in Color. It was really powerful. You had one of your professors who is a licensed clinician come in and talk to us about like mental health issues, especially around the pandemic and that sort of thing. So highly recommend that. And I'm glad you brought that one up because it's such an important issue. So you mentioned you're into animation and you're aspiring animator. So what are you working on now, and what are you looking forward to working on next?
Sure, that's a really good segue. I am working on a project right now called Superdog and the Pet Crew. It's been in development for a really long time. Here they all are on the bottom there. It's a middle grade novel about celebrating your differences, learning about the superpowers that make you unique, and understanding that our differences make us stronger together. It is a comic. I'm going to start posting it on Webtoon in the summer. But it's kind of, again, a nice segue because it's going to be a motion comic. It's going to be on YouTube soon, hopefully by the end of the year. And I had the opportunity to partner with a nonprofit here called the Kansas Academy of Theatrical Arts. And it was casted with a bunch of middle schooler and high school students who maybe this was their first opportunity to voice act before. And it's a really, really cool project. And it's been really cool to be able to partner with them. So look out for this motion comic. It's coming very soon. Yeah, and then the other thing I'm working on is this cool thing called Aaron and Beatrice, The Adventures of Aaron and Beatrice. It is about two siblings, Aaron and Beatrice, who discover a magical pair of teleporting shoes that can take them anywhere in time and space. So as you can see here as well, it's going to be a television pilot. So I'm going to plan on writing it in the fall. I actually just learned today that I'm going to be doing an independent screenwriting study at my school. So that's going to be part of it. This is them and their parents. Their parents are astrophysicists, and the two siblings always get into their inventions, and it's not always a great thing, but it's quite fun. So those are the two big things I'm working on, but I always have other story ideas and projects, and you can find all of them at Gabriel Creates on Instagram if you're curious. So yeah, I never stop working. There's so many ideas. So
that's great. Well, the more ideas, the better. And you already said your Instagram, but do you have any other contact infos you want to say before we run out of time?
Sure. So yeah, at Gabriel Creates on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm going to start doing some live streams over the summer, just drawing. So definitely follow me there. I have a website. It's gabrielreid.myportfolio.com. I work on comics, but I also have a lot of films and short films over there, and some animation projects too. So definitely check that out. And I also just got a Twitter, which is an experience. It is not Gabriel Creates. It is called Pretzel Bear Inc. Like pretzels, like the food, and then bear, like the animal, and then incorporated, so INC. So yeah, those are all the places that I'm at. I'm all over the internet, and my DMs are open as well. So if you have art to share, stories to share, I'd love to hear it. It's so fun. So yeah.
Great. Oh, thank you so much, Gabriel. I'm really excited. Oh, really excited about your work and what's coming next. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to having you do more stuff for Comics in Color coming up. here we are with Mr. Ben Passmore. I'm so excited to have you here. I got a chance to meet you at SPX, I guess it was 2 years ago now, and you were going to be one of the featured artists on the festival that never was, the 2020 Boston Comics in Color Festival. So I'm so excited to have you here today. If you can just introduce yourself to the people and where you're at, and a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Well, yeah. First off, thanks for having me. Let's see. Introduction. I'm Ben Passmore. I'm a Virgo. I enjoy jogging, even though I don't have a jogger's personality. I live in Philadelphia now. I'm associated with New Orleans because I was there for a long time, and that's when I started doing comics. When I lived there, sort of. I do both genre and what I would call essay or journalistic sort of comics from a Black anarchist perspective, radical Black perspective. Black not being like a modifier to a white thing, but a particular sort of like perspective and platform. I regularly contribute to the Nib and do work for other outlets, New York Times, websites that I don't like to mention because they suck.
Fair enough. So I'll ask you the standard question of how did you get into comics? What brought you to this?
Well, I think like, I'm 37, so I was around for like, the comics boom and the dark gritty, so like, and, I think like the first comic I think I really identified was Spawn, you know what I mean? I think at first because I didn't realize a Black artist didn't make it, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, cool, Black hero, whatever. And the first comics I did was like when I was super young, probably like 8 or 9, just basically ripping Spawn off entirely, just making muscly dudes with spikes and chains. But let's see. I was locked up when I was a teenager in an institution, and drawing was like one of the few things I was allowed to do. And then when I finally got out, I went to school. I was able to go to art school. And I didn't have like, it was either art school, I was going to go back to where I was from and do what, working class guys did where I grew up, which is like, drink and do like maintenance, you know what I mean? Like be a mover or something. But fortunately, I was able to go to school, and I went to school for illustration and comics. And I just started doing comics there. And then fortunately, a couple of years ago, things kind of kicked off, and I started getting published.
That's awesome. What school did you go to?
I went to. Well, I found out recently I got a Wikipedia, so Wikipedia be snitching. But I used to not tell anybody because I had problems with it. But I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Oh, SCAD. Yes.
Yeah, SCAD. Yeah.
No comment there.
That's right.
So I'm a big fan of your work, Ben.
Thank you.
I first became aware of you because from my Black friend, or your Black friend.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right? And then then I picked up the one you did with Ezra.
Bottom Feeders.
Bottom Feeders.
Bottom Feeders. Yeah.
But so you've got a really great and a lot of work, a good body of work. So what are you most proud of?
Well, like I think I'm the most known for your Black friends, you know what I mean? And that definitely kicked off this, like a lot of things for me. I think though, like maybe because I'm a hipster, I'm trying to do a deep cut, but I did this series I never finished called A Pantomime Horse that was it's a story that takes place in the place I was locked up in, but it's a fictional story about these girls being sort of repressed in this facility and revolting. And I guess what I like about it is that it's like a sincere attempt at fiction, like most of the things that I do, or it's a very sincere work. Like I tend to like try to be funny, you know what I mean? I try to be funny or like be weird, like throw some tentacles in there, and it's just sincere. But anyway, that's hard to find. So I will say that probably other than that, my favorite is Bottom Feeders, because it's like I always struggle to do art for other people's writing. This really talented writer, cartoonist named Ezra Clayton Daniels wrote the book, and it's the most art I've ever done for a graphic novel before. It's like 300 pages. So it took many years to do, but I'm really proud with how it came out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really great book. I really enjoyed it. So what is coming next for you? What are you working on now, and what are you looking forward to working on?
Well, I've been doing like since Your Black Friend came out, I got a job with the Nib and doing even nonfiction stuff for like Believer and stuff like that. So I do that a lot. And I've gotten more and more into like not just history stuff, but like analysis. You know what I mean? Like some of my favorite non-graphic novel works is like talking about an argument that this dude Robert F. Williams, who's sort of like the grandfather of armed self-defense in the United States for Black people, and Martin Luther King, and sort of comparing that, just talking about comparing, contrasting, contextualizing. I love that stuff. So I was fortunate enough to get to have like Pantheon Publishing is hooking it up. I'm doing a book that's coming out in 2022 that's about like a history, like a narrative history about Black nationalism, armed self-defense in the United States, starting from 1900. And it's, it's like talking about people who you probably haven't heard about, but who I think are like pretty either indicative of like their time or are like pretty instrumental to like some other stuff happening. So it's going to be like, we're going to talk about Malcolm X because we have to, right? But then there's other people like this guy named Robert Charles in New Orleans, who got into a gunfight with basically the whole white population of the city and talk about like how that connected to the, Black colonization of Liberia and stuff. And so I'm pretty excited for that. That's basically running and ruining my life right now, just researching and preparing for that.
That sounds very exciting. Those are stories that they don't tell you, right? That there were,
Yeah,
armed,
that's right.
They always tell you about Martin Luther King because he was nonviolent, but there was a lot of people who were not Martin Luther King, the Deacons
Yeah.
for Defense and all that stuff all around the South. So I'm excited about that. I'll definitely be picking that up. So where can people find your work? You mentioned the Nib, and I love the like the political stuff, especially that one you did about you're riding your bike. The guy was riding his bike past protests and stuff. I thought that one was brilliant. But you can find your work on the Nib. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, the Nib. They got they're up on Instagram. A lot of my books are sold by Silver Sprocket Bicycle Club. They're a publishing house in San Francisco. Also Radiator Books, like if you want to pick up a pantomime horse, Radiator Books, based out of Miami, sells a lot of the like self-published like indie stuff that I did back in the day when I was like like stealing copies basically. But I got my own like social medias. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dayglow A-hole.
Best Twitter name ever.
Very adult, very mature, very easy to find. It's spelled DAYGLOH or AYHOLE. That's DAYGLOAYHOLE. So yeah, find me out there. Got LinkedIn. Don't go there. I never update it.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here at the festival, and we look forward to having you back next year in person, I hope.
No doubt. So, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, my friend. Have a good
Peace.
one. And we'll... Okay, and we're back with Mr. Jason Alexander from Fogbreaker Studios. I got the chance to meet Jason at the MECAF. That's the Maine
Comics and Arts Festival. Yep.
I am originally from Portland, Maine, so I went back there to check that out, and and this brother walks up to me, and he's like, I'm like, whoa, this is great. So I'm really excited to have you here representing Maine, or by way of Maine.
Yeah,
there are one or two Black people in Maine.
Yep, there you go. You got one of them right here.
Right. Half the population right there.
That's it.
But
That's it.
why don't you introduce yourself? And
All right.
I've already said you're in Maine, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Jason Alexander. My brand is Fallbreaker Studios. I'm currently the creative lead and writer on minicomicbundles.com. We're doing a year-long run of collectible mini comics. We're doing 3 a month from September, and I think it's going to run until about November. We're also pushing out some mini comics, and I'm doing some flash fiction prose writing on the website for the annual subscribers. So that's kind of where I am now. All my Instagram is always where I post most of my stuff of what I'm doing, and the mini comic bundles on Facebook. But yeah, that's where I am. Like, this is, if y'all want to get a look, like when I say mini comics, they are mini comics. A really neat idea that the artist had, Aaron Guzman, to just kind of push out a bunch of stories and get them out in the mail every single month. And he needed a writer, and I love writing. So here we are. We started going on it, and the rest is been history. You know, we put out about 30 books since September, which is pretty cool for your first year of production. So I'm very, very proud of that.
That's a lot of work. And so is the mini comic bundles, is that a subscriptive service where you like sign up for it and you receive comics in the mail?
Exactly. Yep. You get them in the mail every month. Three books for $5 a month. You can sign up for the whole year for $60. And signing up for the whole year gets you access to the web comics that we're doing, gets you access to the flash fiction, and a couple of sneak peeks on what comes next from us.
Very cool. That's a really cool business model. So what got you into comics in the first place? What made you want to be a comic creator?
What made me want to be a comic creator was realizing that I was raised in a high control religion, and on my escape from it, I knew that there would be some type of activism in my future. I just didn't know what it looked like. And talking to a friend of mine who does a lot of music, I saw how he was getting a lot of pain out through his music. And I said, you know what? I think I want to do a comic book. Not necessarily knowing all the intricate details of what was to come in my future, but once I decided that, man, I started writing, and I realized like that was my thing. And I knew that comics was something that if I pushed myself enough, it was something that I could slide under a kid who might have the same questions that I had door. I was handing out magazines my whole life anyway, so may as well hand out magazines that I was creating on my own. So at that point, the rest was history. And once I was enjoying that, I realized that I enjoyed what comics had to offer. And I just want to see what else I can do with them.
Yes, it can be incredibly therapeutic writing stories and drawing stories, and I really, for myself personally, I find it to be very therapeutic.
Absolutely.
To work through some stuff, and I love that. So what's the one of your work you're most proud of? I mean, you've got a handful of mini comics.
I'm so proud of the project in and of itself. The project is so fascinating, and I'm as rewarded as I hope the supporters are when they get them every month. Like, I'm always excited to get them, but it's pretty cool to see these stories exist and then see us start to say, okay, how do we get this to the bigger picture? What does this look like in a full-size comic? And this story here, Fishing Trip, started out as a daydream in one of my first fishing trips in Maine. And now it is going to be the platform that we build off of our next project after the mini comics are completed. So that's definitely one of the projects that I got going. And I'm just, I'm always working on my stuff in the background, that I like writing and drawing. But we'll see what happens with that. I got a story I'm gonna try to put some pages out for and see what the people think about it.
Cool. And so so it sounds like you're working, you've got some plans. So what's coming next in the mini comic bundles,
So
or what's your next project you're working on?
So on completion of the mini comics, we are going to go into a story called Shabito Files. It's the best way to describe it is a Fantastic Four family meets X-Files meets true, the truest Junji Ito Japanese horror. So it's a story of a family who has saved the world before they had children, but in order to save the world, they cursed their future children with with essentially powers, but it's entities that get attached to these kids that give them their powers. And so you meet this family with this unspoken tension while they're trying to do something that they really only can do. It's very Indiana Jones. It's got a splash of Lovecraft Country in it as well, because I love that show. So horror is something that I never thought I would write, but it turns out it was something that I was always writing, and now I'm just embracing it. I'm going back and I'm looking at old horror, and I'm just having a blast. It's the playground I want to play in.
Well, that story sounds dark, but like in the best way.
Thank you.
And I think that there's this surge. I mean, there's always been Black folks writing and doing horror, but I feel like there's been this surge, especially with like Jordan Peele's work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With creators of color creating these horror stories, and horror for Black folks is different than horror for white folks, right? Because we lived through horror.
It's personal,
yeah, right,
absolutely. And it's you get marginalized, and then so many of us find ourselves in other situations that we are also pushed down on. Mental health is something that is not discussed enough in our community. And once I got counseling, it changed everything for me. And so I'm a huge advocate for that, but I'm also a huge advocate for speaking about the things that are ugly and not being afraid to speak on it. I don't do family secrets anymore. I won't do that because it serves nobody. But no, our horror it's got everybody's horror does, but our horror has soul, because
yes.
It's just that's kind of what we do. I'm very much enjoying it. It's just a fun field to be in, and to just, I don't know, just scare you because it's scary.
That sounds exciting. I look forward to reading that one because I do enjoy a bit of horror.
Awesome. You'll love it.
Yeah, cool. Very, very good. All right. Well, tell me, where can people find your work?
Instagram, Fallbreaker Studios. I'm very active there. Facebook, I'm Jason Alexander. I'm also Mini Comic Bundles on Facebook. I got some more peripherals I'm trying to work on, but all that will be posted and funneled through my Instagram. The website is Mini Comic Bundles. All the information is there on the minis, on the web comics that are coming up, all your subscriber information, and send DMs if you have questions. I'm always happy to answer.
Absolutely. So everybody out there, subscribe to Mini Comic Bundles, because like, what's better than getting comics in the mail?
Let's sell this out so we can get some more stuff done, guys.
That's right, and he can do more work on his horror comic, which
exactly.
All right.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I'm so glad you could be a part of it.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, take it easy. All right, next up we have Mr. Branson Belshi. All right. Well, so glad to have you here, man. You're one of the few folks that I haven't actually met in person. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you're at, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm New York City originally. Currently living in Seattle, and that's what's been going on. In regards to where I'm at, it's really just been trying to do comics and all sorts of graphics and just expanding my creativity. So that's the game.
So you're having a little bit of audio issues, so we're missing a few of the things you're saying. So well, we're keep moving forward. But so I know your brand is Starvey Comics, but what got you into comics in the first place? What made you want to make comics?
Well, when I was younger, I grew up during the 90s, so it was a lot of stay inside and do something. But so I really just got into drawing, and I used to watch. This might be dating, but I used to watch Batman. Oh, you switch to headphones. You guys hear me?
If you can, the audio is really rough right now. I want to be able to hear your answers there.
Let me see if I can make it here. One sec.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the connection or if
Is this better?
Yes, I think so. Can you answer that question again? What got you into comics? Maybe we could see how it's doing. No, that is not better. Oh, it's bro. It's the audio is really bad. Can you maybe maybe try to get a better connection, and we'll come back to you. Can we do that? All right. So sorry about that technical difficulties with Branson. Hopefully he'll be able to get a better connection and come back with us so we can hear about his work. But with us, we have Mr. Tim Feilder. I'm very excited to have you. We tried to get him last year, but his book wasn't out yet. But now, as you can see right behind him, Infinitum is there. So Tim, why don't you tell him, introduce yourself, tell him where you are, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, right now, Tim Feilder, born in Tupelo, raised in Clarksdale, Mississippi, here presently in the Big Easy, New Orleans, sitting up here in this hot house because it gets hot down here in the Big Easy. And thank you for having me to your con. I know we've been trying this several times, but I finally got that book there out, Infinitum, an Afrofuturist Tale. And this is after I did that book right there, Maddie's Rocket. I am a visual Afrofuturist, been doing it since I was 12. And I am presently now working on bringing Maddie's Rocket into the mainstream, just like Infinitum. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do it. This book was a labor of love. And before you ask the question, I've been listening to all the other interviews. I'm not going to pick between my children, man. They both mean so much to me equally.
That's fair. That's fair. You can't have a favorite.
I'm not going to well, I like this one better than that one. Nah, man, they both are important.
That's awesome. So what got you into comics, Tim, originally?
Youngest of 4 siblings, all artists. And of course, as the youngest, I've said this before, I just have to say, as a young, you don't really, when you're youngest, you don't really have a choice to choose between what your extracurricular activity is going to do. Basically, do what your older siblings do. So I'm the comic guy, and I've been saddled with that my entire life. And that's what I do. And actually spent some time out of comics. But when I was out of comics, I think I was listening to Ben say that he was in that down period of the comics industry. So was I. But I moved into video game design and animation. And it just so happens when I got back into comics in 2013, all of the things I learned how to do, animation, 3D, 2D hybrid, 2.5D animation, I was able to bring that entire skill set into my work, and it's changed my life.
Awesome. So I know you said you can't choose between your two babies behind you.
I said I will not choose. I can't choose, but I won't.
I choose not to. But why don't you give us a little quick synopsis of what Infinitum and Maddie's Rocket are about?
Yeah, Infinitum is about an African warlord named Aja Oba, who does this horrible thing to this sorceress, and he is as a result, cursed with the gift of immortality. And he is forced to live for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, seeing civilizations rise and fall. Those people who he loves, they rise and fall. And it's the seminal kind of immortal trope that you see in Highlander and things like that. But I wanted to do it within an Afrofuturist lens, and to show some pretty big time kind of science fiction stuff that would go on. And I feel like I achieved that with Infinitum because it's really the first Afrofuturist graphic novel with with an original storyline published by a Big Five. So I'm very honored to have done this through HarperCollins Amistad, and it's a pretty big deal. Now, Maddie's Rocket is my older retro Afrofuturist comic, graphic novel, where I wanted to do almost like an anthropological study where I would take a lot of the things I love, pulp fiction, pulp cartoons, The Shadow, Doc Savage, but I wanted to feature a Black female character who would give my parents, who are both in their 80s, the opportunity to see them a time when they grew up in the 30s and 40s, but to see Black characters have those kind of intergalactic adventures. And it went great because that book there, where is it? Got me that book there. And that's what's been going on. Yep.
Awesome. That sounds like an amazing story.
Thank you.
How you mentioned that you're going to bring Maddie's Rocket into the mainstream. Do you have a plan on how you're going to do that you can share?
Yes. Already wrote the pitch, a trilogy. I'll be reinterpreting slightly the first book, but adding about another 30 to 50 pages to it. I've already had the breakdowns done mostly for all three books. I am presently in the process of, because as a digital artist, I built many of my environments in 3D. I've been doing 3D for 25 years. And so I'm in the process of building my sets and my assets. And once that gets done, then it's diving all in. So right now I'm building my environments in 3D, my props, and doing my breakdowns, or putting the breakdowns in correct order. And then after that, it's painting my background, because I'm a digital paint guy. I love it. It's got to look like heavy metals, got to look like Mobius. And then after that, just crunching, man, to get those three books prepped, hopefully within the next 12 to 18 months.
So those are going to be in book form. I mean, it almost sounded like you were talking about animation or video design.
Man, I'm not here to start talking about some of the more in detail stuff, but the stuff will be, I know Infinitum for sure will be in either streaming form or movie form. I just can't talk about who it's with or when it's going to be. Maddie's Rocket will also be there, but because Infinitum is out now, those conversations are underway. It's so weird saying that, you know what I mean? But that's basically what's happening. I can't complain.
That sounds amazing. I'm excited about that prospect, and I definitely want to get my my copy of Infinitum, but I really want to get it from you and have you sign it, because it just looks like such an epic book.
Absolutely.
Read it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So where can people find your work, Tim?
You can find my work at HarperCollins, the website. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Walmart. You can find it at Target. If you're in Britain, you can find it at Waterstones, Amazon UK. It's basically all over the planet, which is really weird because I'm only used to things being available, not being available. You know, you can find it through me. So that's basically what's going on. I don't know how else to put it, but that is basically the only way I could put it.
So you can find it anywhere that fine books are sold.
Fine books are sold. Yes.
Excellent, man. Well, I'm very happy for you, and I'm so glad that you were able to come and be a part of the Boston Comics and Color Festival. It means a ton to have you here.
Thank you. Also, I have something for you here that you don't know about. I'm almost finished here. If you just give me a second here to finish up the image. Yes, I've been drawing you, man, for the last hour. Wow. And you just, have not behaved because you've been moving around a lot, man. And I'm like, why don't he be still, man? But he's not being still. So if you would give me,
I will stay still.
Can you give me about 30 seconds?
Of course. And one of the things I have to say about you is that I caught your live draw at the Black Comic Book Festival in New York, and you just brought this amazing energy.
Thank you.
It was the funnest live draw I've ever seen.
Thank you. Thank you
so boom, much. Bang. It was like
okay. All right. I'm doing my Denzel. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to do a little blending here. Okay.
Ooh, I can't wait to see this. I am so honored.
I didn't not get enough to put all the detail in, but yeah, that actually looks like you there. So here, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Now, hopefully my wife will call me again while I'm trying to do this interview. So we're going to go here. I'm going to go to video in 30 seconds. Here we go. Come on, because we need to save our work. Because if we don't save our work, it could disappear into the ether. We don't want that.
Save.
Save. All right, now we're going to go
digital artist mantra.
We're going to go there. Is it playing? Yeah, there it is.
Oh, you got to angle it a little bit more. I can't see it.
Doggone it. Come on.
I want to see this. Oh, I see it. Oh, wow. That does look, oh my goodness. That's me, all right.
And it was hard to do because, man, you won't sit still. What is that? This guy, he won't sit still. I'm trying to draw him. I'm like, why does he sit still? Wow. Then we had to get the shadows in there. Had to get the glasses because, you got the specs going on. And you're rocking that hat, brother. You're rocking that hat, right? So this is what I did. So I'm obviously going to send this to you. And it is your image. And feel free to do whatever you want to. It's my absolute honor and pleasure to be here with you. I know you've been trying. I hope you didn't think I was blowing you off. I just didn't want to do it till I was ready.
I appreciate it, and I'm just so happy to have you here. And I am unbelievably honored by getting a portrait done by you.
Well, let's be honest, man. You do good work. You do good work. I've heard about your con for the last several years. And it's important to me, because I come from that indie space. So it really is just about, okay, if you're going to do the indie thing, you have to really engage any and all people who work in that space. And so what I wanted to do was to make sure that I did the image and paid the proper respect and let you know that I care about what you do. I honor what you do. And now that my book is out, I can finally say, yes. I can do it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure.
It was a pleasure to have you.
I will upload this. Go to dieselfunk.com. Go to amazon.com. Twitter is dieselfunk. Instagram is dieselfunk. It's all dieselfunk.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Live long and prosper.
All right.
Okay, we're back, and I'm very excited to have Deian and Julian from Anywhere But Here Comics. These gentlemen reached out to me. They saw that the con was happening, and they reached out, and they were kind enough to send me copies of their comic, which is really, really bold with an all black cover. The comic is called Night, right?
Absolutely.
And it's really good, really dark, and really the artwork is amazing. The story is great. But I'm going to let y'all talk about it because this is not about me. It's about you. So why don't you introduce yourselves, tell us where you are, and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, so Deian Akande, writer, co-founder at ABH Comics. I'm currently in Northern Virginia, technically, but I'll just say DC because nobody really knows where I'm actually at in Virginia. And I got to say shout out to Mr. Passmore and SCAD because I actually got recruited. I almost played baseball there. So that's my relation there. But, we started ABH Comics in 2019 and we've been going ever since out here outside of DC. And then Julian, I don't know if you want to give your intro.
Yep, I'm basically from the same area. So yeah, from the DC area, and Dan and I have been friends for about 10 years, and we got together and did this comic book.
Nice. So what got you guys into comics? I mean, you didn't just start doing comics. You created a whole comic company.
Yeah,
I think you got several titles you're working on as well, too, right?
The wild thing is that's exactly what we did is we just jumped into comics and we're two random guys working in cubicles in IT. And my comics origin is actually pretty short. Julian has a much more extensive one. I, was writing sci-fi and still write sci-fi. That's my first love. But when 2016 happened, the run up to the Trump presidency, you started noticing the conversation in America. Everybody on all sides of the argument on America's racial history weren't coming from a shared objective reality. And, my grandfather grew up in Sugar Lock, Mississippi. He was born in 1917. So shout out to Mr. Feilder in terms of sharing that Mississippi. But he did not hesitate to tell us stories of what it was like to grow up in the Jim Crow South and just how awful it could be and how hard and how violent it could be. So, when 2016 happened and I heard a lot of the different perspectives coming around America's racial history, a lot of it was so wrong that I thought there's got to be some way that we can come up with a story to baseline that reality and baseline the conversation around America's racial history. And I thought, wow, it would be a really good way to make that conversation a little more accessible by doing something like a comic book. And also use the superhero iconography and mythology and mythos to convey some of the psychological and emotional truths that people in vulnerable populations felt back then and now. So that's where the idea for Night came from. And so I called Julian, and I knowing his deep love of comics, and said, "Hey, you want to do this comic?" And he said, "Absolutely." And I was a little surprised that he said yes, but super happy that he said yes, and the rest was history.
Awesome. And Julian, how did you get into comics?
Yeah, so I first got into comic books by the way of Ninja Turtles. So that was the center of my world, my universe when I was 5 years old. So I got into it back then, and I watched the show. I collected the action figures, and then when a comic book came out, it was natural that I was gonna look at the comic book. So there was a Ninja Turtles Adventures comics that was an adaptation of the TV show, and that was kind of my gateway into the comic book world. And then from there, I got into superhero comics, primarily Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, and I've been collecting ever since. But most of my early influences were not actually writers. So Deian and I are writing the comic. We didn't illustrate it, but originally I wanted to be an artist. So some of the people I idolized back when I was younger were like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Todd McFarlane, Dennis Cohen, Tim Sale, Mark Bagley. I could go on and on, but so that was my first inspiration to become an illustrator. And as a kid, I created an entire comic book universe, superhero universe of my own, and I planned on starting up my own comic book business one day. But as the years rolled on, I essentially read every permutation of the superhero comic, and then there were numerous deconstructions of the genre, like Watchmen, like Dark Knight Returns, and I became somewhat disillusioned in myself that I'd be able to bring something new truly new and original to the superhero comic books world. And then I got more into filmmaking, and my artistic pursuits started to move away from comics and more towards being a film director. But then when Deian called me up, he told me the concept for Night. I saw the potential to do something truly original and revolutionary. It was just a brilliant idea, and truly something different in the superhero genre. So Dan really brought me back full circle to wanting to that childhood dream of wanting to be a comic book creator. And actually putting together a comic book on a professional level, it really has me loving the genre in a way that I haven't felt since I was a kid. So really appreciate getting to do this with Dan.
Awesome. And Julian, you got a little bit of a buzz on your audio. I don't know if you've got headphones or your mic, maybe.
Okay.
It's fine, but if you can fix it, that would be great.
Sure.
That's amazing. And I have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles connection too, where I got to meet Kevin Eastman when I was like 9 years old at a comic convention in Maine, and he loved I actually won an award from him, and it cemented my love for making comics. And I love what you said, Julian, that like making comics could, like, you get kind of disillusioned with comics, but when you start making comics, it gives you this whole another love of the genre and what goes into it, and you start to read those old comics, and it's completely different because you're thinking about how do they make this story, like how did this all come together. So I think that was a really important point. But I know you guys Night is your only comic currently, right? You have one issue out. So I was asking, like, what are you most proud of? Obviously you're most proud of Night, but what about the story are you most proud of?
For me personally, I think it's about, the thing I'm most proud of is being able to somewhat successfully bring a reality of history to a medium that just offers the ability for so many people to access it. It's not necessarily a fun read, but it's an interesting read, and I think it really does allow people to put themselves in the shoes of vulnerable populations. And again, like I said previously, baseline that conversation of what our history actually was. Some of the process we used to develop the story was to actually do research, both talking to firsthand sources in my family, but listening to, there was a project done by Duke University where they interviewed a lot of African Americans that lived during the Jim Crow South and talked about their experiences, and going through newspaper articles of what actual lynchings were like, and what those experiences were like. And we don't shy away from that. So the thing that we're probably most proud of, at least that I'm most proud of, is being able to actually bring that to a new medium and hopefully pique some curiosity in people to say, well, what was the actual history? Let's stop arguing about it from a tribal standpoint. How can we put ourselves in other people's shoes and come to a common understanding about what the history was, and move from there and start to actually have some real conversations that bring about change.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think diverse storytelling is good for everyone. Having diverse voices and diverse stories helps everyone, not just people of color, but white folks and people in other countries understand one another. All right, I'll put the same to you, Julian. What are you proud of in the Night book?
So I think one of the things that I'm the most proud of in working on this, and really, as a white person who doesn't have the experience, the tacit experience of being Black in America, it was really a process for me to understand the history of oppression in this country. And when Dan originally called me about the idea, I really felt that this was an opportunity to tell a story of a uniquely American hero with a uniquely American experience and a uniquely American history. But usually in this country, most folks would think it's counterintuitive to the Americanness that we're conditioned to think about. Right? We're conditioned to think about Americanness as the founding fathers, or baseball, or apple pie, or the white nuclear family, right? But this story is about, but this story is as American as any of those things, because, you know, African American history goes all the way back to the days of the settlers. So doing a superhero that's really steeped in the American experience that we've ignored for so long was really compelling to me. And, you know, when you think about characters like Superman, it's really like an idealized hero set in like the fairy tale version that we tell ourselves about America that never really existed. But what we want to do with our comic book, with Knight, we want to tell a story about a genuine and complex hero navigating America as it really was, and making those connections about how past is prologue, and the situation that we find ourselves in today with systemic racism. There's a direct line in history, and we really want to explore that with Knight.
Awesome. So what are you guys working on now, and what's coming up next for Anywhere But Here Comics?
So we got a lot of plans to speak to what Julian was talking about. You know, this conversation, there's a lot of nuance to our experience. It's not enough to just make things a monolith to say that, you know, racism is bad and it's really about good and evil. It's more than that. It's about human capability. So we've actually planned, I think we've written 16 issues for our first arc. And I think we have an additional 8 arcs already planned out, story-wise, that we're ready to go. And coming up in June, and Julian, tell me if I'm getting this right or if I forget something, I think hopefully around the June timeframe, we'll actually have some new content we'll be pushing out via social media, which will build the world of Knight in Jubilee, Alabama, the fictional town that it takes place in. And again, really explore the nuance of the experience of vulnerable populations or oppressed people in our history to have the inclusive goal of baselining that conversation so that everybody can come from a very realistic, shared objective reality when we talk about it in this country.
Awesome. And Julian, anything to add there?
Nothing to add other than I just wanted to highlight the fact that we have written the entire first 16-issue arc. We are going to be producing it. Since we're funding the entire operation out of our own pockets to make sure that our artists, John Bosco and Luis Sosa, get our letterer, both get paid. We're going to be producing it kind of slowly, but we are looking at doing some crowdfunding campaigns, and if those are successful, we'll be able to accelerate that timeline.
Yeah, if you want a copy of the print version, keep an eye out for the Kickstarter. This is going to be heavy in the rewards as well as a couple other things.
I was going to say we had a panel earlier today about crowdfunding, and they had some incredible information about running a Kickstarter successfully with 4 people who've done a lot. So you guys should definitely try that avenue out. Mm-hmm. So tell us about, one thing I wanted to mention is the guys from Anywhere But Here Comics were nice enough to send us a couple of copies of Knight that we're going to be raffling off at the open air market on Saturday. So definitely look forward to that. And so tell us where people can find your work.
So it's ABH Comics, and that's everything. So it stands for Anywhere But Here Comics. The quick story behind that is, you know, Julian and I both worked at the same place in IT and cubicles, and, you know, so many times we'd get a task and look over at each other and just say, anywhere but here. So that's something you could use to remember that. But it's ABH Comics. So at ABH Comics is our Twitter handle. It's also our Instagram handle. You can search ABH Comics on Facebook.
And Comics is with a K, right?
Comics with a K. That's right.
Okay. You got to point that out.
Absolutely. And so our DMs are open. But most importantly, if you go to www.nightrises.com, you can actually read the digital version of this guy right here, the print version. You can read the digital version of it for free. All you got to do is sign up. We're not going to bomb you with a ton of emails. But if you sign up, you can read it for free today. And it's awesome. And keep an eye out for that Kickstarter to get your hands on the print copy.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your work with us. I'm excited by the project, and I'm excited that you've got an entire, several arcs already done. So I'm excited to read more in the future. So thank you guys so much for coming and be a part of this. I hope we can get you out next year in person to come to the Comics in Color Festival.
No COVID.
No COVID. No
Thank you
COVID.
so much for having us, and congratulations, man. This is awesome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, it looks like we're having a little difficulty with Branton. I'm really sorry that we weren't able to talk to him. I was really excited about talking to him, but thank you to all the creators that joined us here for the Meet the Makers channel. This was really amazing. We'll try to bring Branson back, and maybe we can bring him to one of our monthly sessions, or bring him in for something else, so that we can hear more about his work. But that's it for today, for the first day of the Boston Comics and Color Festival. This has been really, really great. I had a really great time, and please join us tomorrow starting at 11 with Comics Connectivity. It's going to be an amazing panel hosted by Barrington Edwards with a bunch of amazing comic creators. And join us on Saturday for the open air market at Roxbury Community College. Thank you all so much for watching, and come back tomorrow. We're going to have more amazing panels for you. All right, good night.